Yeah. Thanks, Rajiv. So should we talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh? I think it'll be useful.
Yes.
It'll be useful because we forget, we get so caught up in the concepts that we forget this is designed to change our, uh, how we live. Um, so, so let me tell you a little bit about the Ved in general, right? Because although this philosophy is called Vedant, it's called Vedant because it looks at the Ved, the whole Ved, from the point of view of the end of the Ved, the Ant of the Ved, which is Upanishads. But it looks at the whole Ved. It doesn't discard the first part of the Vedas. In parallel, by the way, there's another philosophy called Purva Mimamsa, which is often referred to as Mimamsa, which looks at the whole Ved from the point of view of the early portion of the Ved. It doesn't that also doesn't discard Upanishads, but their perspective is from the early portion of the Ved. So both of these are two fundamental philosophies of India. Both are derived from the Ved, but the characteristic of the Ved is that you can think about it as two very distinct parts. They're related, but they're very distinct in their approach. So depending on which perspective you take, you have a different interpretation of the Ved. So so why is Ved different? Because the first half of not half, the first portion of the Ved, which is the majority of the Ved, talks about rituals, upasanas, meditations, and things like this. They are talking about you as an individual and what do you need to do as an individual to become a better individual, better in inverted commas. By better, they mean um, better adjusted to this life, better adjusted to the world. And also, so those are the karma, and live a meaningful life, get what you want. How do you develop the skills to get what you want in life? And also dharma, which is their third, it's kama, artha, dharma, and moksha. So dharma means do the things that are necessary to be done so that your next life is also good. That's what dharma means. Dharma means do the right things so that you get pun. And by punya, you get better janma in the next life. So those are the three uh, focus areas of the Veda Purva. Veda Purva is called Karam Kanda. It's also called Karam Kanda. Karam Kanda and Upasana Kanda. Now, Veda Anta, which is what we are doing, focuses on it looks at the Ved from the point of view of the second portion of the Ved. The second portion of the Ved, which is called Gyan Kand, teaches slightly differently. It doesn't talk about what you have to do to better adjust in this life, what you have to do to be more successful in this life, or how you should behave with other people and all that. It doesn't really focus on that. It's focused on your identity. That what you really are not what you think you are. What you really are is Brahman. That is its focus. Right? So when we talk about Vedanta, when we do Vedanta, we talk a lot about that. But the reason why it doesn't talk about the first portion of Vedanta is not because it's not interesting. It doesn't talk so much about the first portion of Vedas is because it assumes that you have already done the first portion of the Vedas. That you're already an expert at that. you know, you figured that out. Now we go to the next one. So, and when it says readiness, it says you're ready. It means that you've acquired the skills, the mental and other skills that you needed from studying the first portion of the Vedas, from living the first portion of the Vedas, and now you're ready to move on to the next. That's how it looks at it. So when we talk about readiness, we are talking about the stuff of the first portion of the Vedas. now, now, between the times, the Vedic times, which 2,000-3,000 years ago, and now, there are changes. And changes are that during the Vedic times, people were living a very different life. They had time and interest to do Vedic karmas. So Vedic karmas are, um, you know, doing certain rituals. There are some rituals which have to be done once a day. There are some which have to be done thrice a day. They have to be done. They are called nimitta karmas, rituals that have to be done. And there are some rituals which are done when you want something. If you want a child, you do a ritual. If you want rains, you do a ritual. You want wealth, success in some business, you do a certain ritual. So they are called kamya karmas. Okay, so kamya karmas are which are required to do kama, for some desire. So the focus of Vedas at that time was initially to help you to get what you want. There are the karmas you should do, and along with the karmas, there were some pujas, and they asked you to live, a dharmic life, to do it in the dharmic way. They said give a lot of donations, all these things. All that is gone now. Nobody does any Vedic karmas. Oh, by the way, before I move on, the term Karam Yoga came from that portion of the Vedas. During that time, these Kame karmas, which were done for achieving some particular worldly desire, they got transformed into Karam Yoga. So what what the what Vedanta tells you is that if you are, as you want to get into Gyan, Gyan Kand, as you want to learn more and more about yourself and Brahman and all that, instead of now focusing on meeting your desires, you do the same karmas that you were doing earlier, the same rituals, the same things, but now without asking for a return, without asking for a price. Do it because they must be done. So a change in attitude. That is the genesis of Karam Yoga. That is what Karam Yoga means. So if you look at Karam Yoga in many of our scriptures, what they mean by that is do the rituals that are supposed to be done, which you have to do as a householder. These are prescribed rituals, but do them without a request or a requirement for desire. When you do the rituals, you basically, as a yajamana, as a person who's doing the ritual, you're asking a particular devta that I'm doing this for you, please give me this. Stop that. Just say, I'm doing this for you because it needs to be done. So this is how it started. But now it is transformed because now we don't have Vedic karmas. So what we have is Lokik karmas. That means Lokik means done in the lok now. So these karmas now, we still say it's the same thing. We are doing the karmas. We do work in the world in order to get some material benefits, or we do things like donation and all to get dharma. That is all. I mean, at the end of the day, a person who's doing good job, good things is also doing it for a selfish reason. It's to get punya in a very, very subtle way. But this is how we do karmas. And now we are saying, don't do that with an intention of reward, but do what you have to do because it needs to be done. That is Karam Yoga. It's a change in your attitude when you do the work. That is Karam Yoga. Okay. So like I was saying, the Vedic karmas are gone, but Lokik karmas still remain. We have to live in this world. So one big activity that has to be done in order to get qualification for a Vedant, to qualify yourself, is this Karam Yoga. You have to do things with not for reward for its own sake, but because you realize that these things have to be done. This is how world goes on. I need to do these things. Even if you want a reward, because you can't you can't do without a reward. You have to be very clear that that reward is not what you're seeking. What you're seeking really is purification of your heart. That's why purification of your mind. That's why you're doing these karmas. So maybe I may have digressed a little bit, but I wanted to tell you that there is a background to this, which is Vedas, which is everybody who talks about Vedanta assumes, or at least the Shastras assume that you've done all that. That you have they define something called the sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. They are the qualifications. These qualifications come by doing the stuff that the Veda Purva has prescribed to be done. The sadhana chatushtaya sampatti is, it means a disciplined mind. That is one thing. The disciplined mind meaning which is under control of the brain, of the head. A desire for happiness, for moksha, then viveka and vairagya. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with all this, because if you are, I don't want to go into it again. But the assumption is that these things are in place. And if they are not in place, then you're working towards them while you're getting knowledge or trying to get knowledge. Because without these things, it's impossible to get knowledge. So this is the perspective of the traditional approach to Vedanta. Doesn't mean this is the only approach. This is the traditional approach. So if you read about Shankaracharya and his commentaries and everything that we actually study, this is the way that we are taught. and they all know that, we've not spent years doing Vedic karmas or any of those things. So they will tell you, doesn't matter if you've not done it, focus on them now. And they'll go to the gist of it and say, focus on, antakarna shuddhi. That means better understanding your desires, getting better control of your desires, ability to focus your mind, the kind of stuff that Mukta you did at, that is really extreme focus in Vipassana, but do the meditations and all that so that you can focus your mind. And that will give you the skill set that you need so that you can do Vedanta properly. Now, just to emphasize this point a little bit more, I'll say one more thing. So you'll see, when you think about the Purva, Veda Purva, that means the portion of the Vedas which are not Gyan Kanda, but which are Karam Kanda, which is talking about rituals, which is talking about how to better live in this world, how to achieve success, whichever way you want to define success in your life here. That's first step. Achieve success in your life here. Then you move on to Vedanta. When they say that, they also talk about discrimination. Just like Vedanta talks about discrimination. But what do you think they mean by discrimination? Or you think about the vast majority of people around us. When they say discrimination, or you talk about discrimination, what is their sense? What do they mean when they say discrimination? Take a guess. You're totally right, whatever you say. I'm sure you know. I'm asking you this because I want you to start talking a little bit. Just getting you involved.
No, what do you mean by discrimination here? In what context?
Yeah. So I'm saying, if someone had no idea about Vedanta, no clue.
Okay.
Usko aapko discrimination. You should have better discrimination in life. What might
तो वो
they
तो
take away?
ethics.
Ethics.
वो तो
Right?
फिर धर्म और ethics
Exactly.
की
Absolutely. It's the
discrimination की
discrimination
बात है.
between the right and the wrong thing to do. That is discrimination, right? Between right and wrong. What is the right thing to do in a particular environment in a particular situation. By right, you define it through dharma by saying, okay, sabke hit mein hai. Everybody will benefit. It's good for the world. It's good for ecology. It's, it seems like the right thing to do, right? That is discrimination. So think about Veda Purva as the ability to build that discrimination. What's the right thing to do? That is Veda Purva. That's not the discrimination we mean when we talk in Vedanta. You know what the Vedanta discrimination is, right? Viveka. That's the discrimination between the real and the not real. That's a different discrimination. But it is assumed that you already know the discrimination between the right and the wrong before you step into the discrimination between the real and the unreal. This is assumed. And if you don't, you have to work on that discrimination because you can't bypass that. This is like the Erickson's stages of life. You can't say, मैंने पहले 2-3 stages में कुछ नहीं मिला, I'll just go on to the next one. Because what you haven't received, what you haven't got is going to still catch up with you. So no amount of Vedanta can compensate for the fact that you don't know how to do the right thing or discriminate between right and wrong anytime in life. Okay? That is why it is important to get this right. I mean, I'm going to ask you another question. When we say Vedanta is about identity, right? Like my identity. Who am I? If you talk to a person who has no clue about Vedanta, nothing, just any well educated, good person, smart guy or girl, and you ask them, it's important to have a healthy identity, good ego, healthy ego. How would you define it? What does it mean?
Somebody who's honest, caring, hardworking, knows the right from the wrong.
I mean, would you say a good, healthy sense of self worth?
Self-worth. Yeah.
Yeah. Well adjusted in life, has worked on identity issues. You don't need Vedanta to do all this, right? You don't even need Veda Purva to do it, but Veda Purva in those days would help you do it. उस समय तो psychologists होते ही नहीं थे, psychiatrists नहीं होते थे. So that structure was different. The purpose of Ved was to help you get here. So they have their own techniques. कर्म योग, ये कर्म, वो कर्म. कर्म करने से they feel कि कर्म करने से मन शुद्ध होता है. Which is actually intuitively right, isn't it? You work hard, you be productive, you do something good for people, you contribute in society, you feel little some purity of mind. So that identity, healthy self-worth, is assumed before you get into Vedanta. Because what is Vedanta's identity concept? What does Vedanta tell you? That your
I
identity,
am Brahman.
yes, it says your identity is Brahman's. But remember that is after you've achieved a very healthy identity in the world, not before. You can't surpass your identity issues in this world by saying I'll leapfrog it and say I'm Brahman. So it doesn't really matter what my identity is, right? It doesn't work that way. So this is the whole thinking behind the traditional approach to Vedanta, which is you need readiness. And this is how, you can define readiness in many ways, but in essence, this is what readiness means. It means that you have sorted yourself out. You're a sorted out person in this world. You've done what you need to sort out yourself. In fact, actually, there is a, I've quoted this before also, but widely quoted mantra in the Mundaka Upanishad, which says, Parikshaya Lokan Karam Chittan Brahmana Nirvedan Ayat. So what it's saying is that the route to Nirvedan, to dispassion, is by living your life. So, in other words, you cannot achieve dispassion by thinking about dispassion. You achieve dispassion, which is one of the requirements of qualifications of Vedanta, by living your life. And parikshay, meaning examining that life. So living your life and reflecting upon it. That's how you achieve dispassion. That means you actually have the ups, the downs, the success, the failures. You experience all that. You live this life to the full. Get whatever you can. Get the whole nichod of this life. कोई कसर नहीं छोड़ो. Only then you can achieve dispassion, because only then you will know that actually I have got whatever I could out of this life, and it's still not enough. Otherwise, you'll conceptually know that okay, Vedant says that this life is not enough, but deep inside, experientially, you don't know that because you're still lacking. So the idea of Vedant, this is I mean, if you would really want Vedant to work properly, you got to understand this, and it's not that you have to be perfect, otherwise, nobody will be qualified for ever be qualified for Vedant. Like we'll need perfection, but relatively speaking, you should be qualified, and more importantly, you have to keep working on the qualification part alongside your learning of Vedanta. That's what Swamiji always says. He says, even like Karam Yoga, you cannot drop. So till the time that you achieve Gyan, you're a Karam Yogi because you want Gyan. After you achieve Gyan, then also you're a Karam Yogi because that is your Swabhav. That is what you are. You realize that this is the nature of human beings. This is your actual nature. This is what you do. Or karne ko kya hai? You'll still do work. You're done with your desires. They said you're doing it for lok kalyan, logo ke liye. So I just thought I'll just share this with you, just because I thought that was important.
That there should be no spiritual bypassing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. You'll just if you really, otherwise you'll just blame Vedant and say, Vedant doesn't work. You'll just kind of that's what I mean. No, there's nowadays, especially in the West, Vedant has sort of spread to the West a lot. So there are a lot of teachers who talk about non-duality, and they sort of separate it from the Veda Purva. They don't talk about these qualifications as such because they see it as a standalone thing. And their thinking is, get the knowledge. The rest, you have your lifetime to take care of. Vedanta the traditional approach to Vedanta doesn't agree with this. Because the traditional approach to Vedanta says you won't get the knowledge. You just get conceptual knowledge till you've taken care of those things. So, what we believe, what you believe, it's up, whatever your experience in life is up to you. I just wanted to share the two things. Those are the two main sort of viewpoints on how to get to Advaita Vedanta. And there are schools which are all variations along the theme, one between the spectrum, but this is the spectrum.
Dheeraj, I have a question. So conceptually, I think what you mentioned is understandable, and we understand that. I can share my experience with you. So I think correlation of what you do, right, to to get the return element out, right, is easily understood, but hard to kind of implement. I think that's been my experience. So um, I guess I'm trying to understand or try to achieve what do I really need to do? How do I have these kind of postmortem discussions with myself about um, you're doing this, you know, think about why you're doing this and what the benefit to the whole world is versus to yourself, right? I mean, is there some kind of a framework one can use talking to yourself about um, you know not looking at things with personal returns, but looking at how much goodwill or the good that you're doing in the world.
Um, I'm sure there would be, so I can just share my experience here because I don't know too much about this because you're asking it's a sort of a tactical question.
It
How do
is.
I, right? And there may be people who can better answer that, who've kind of more in this field. So if I can just apply some basic principles and, we can talk about those. So one basic principle is don't kid yourself. In other words, be honest. So for example, if you want something badly, then telling yourself that it's wrong to want it, and therefore I don't want to do it, but I should do it for some is worse than admitting to yourself that you want it, and then maybe asking the question why you want it. That's a useful question to ask, but first admitting that you want it, right? So that is because what it means is if you still want something very badly for your own personal thing, what it means is that nirvedan which comes by living your life has not yet come, which is no big deal. Like we are all in the same boat, right? That means you still have in your mind, there is still a feeling that this something is going to give me happiness. And the only way to go beyond it is by trying it and thinking about it and trying to understand why, to sorting it out in your own head, right? Bec- that's assuming that you have to go beyond. You might even say, no, no, that is it. That's all I want. But what I'm trying to say is honesty with yourself is extremely important and extremely difficult because we have our ego. So right now, as a person who's following Vedant, sometimes our ego will say, no, 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 I'm a good student. I understand Vedant. I have Nirvedan. I have dispassion. So your ego will not let you admit to yourself that there is something that you really want. So um, I remember Swami Vivekanand. He used to tell people, he used to say, go play football, do well in life, do whatever, just do what you have to do. You know, that is the way to get their way. So the trick is that this passion is an automatic outcome of living a full life. It's like a fruit which ripens. It's not something that you have to produce in yourself. If you know that, that'll help you with making these decisions much better. But at the same time, you also have to have the judgment to know that am I just saying I want this because of habit? Because that is also possible. You know, you just take step back and think about it and say, no, don't think about what is the right thing to do. That was what I was trying to say. Think about what do I want? What do I really want? So if you have this question in front of you that there is something that you want to get done, then clarity on is this really something I want is more important than try to do something because you think that Vedas or Upanishad or somebody or some guru or some wise man has said that by doing this, it's right. I mean, to me, through personal experience, I can say that is something I think is very useful. I don't know whether it addresses what you were saying, what you were asking.
It does at some level. I think I think your guidance is good. Um, Applying it, is always the challenge, and learning from what you're doing is always the challenge. So anyway, I'll rethink through what you mentioned and try to see how to adopt it and see, how I feel about it.
This is what you raised is a great question in the qualification arena. So the way I see it is you're addressing something which you need to address to be a better individual, a better human being. And by doing this exercise in this process, you will sharpen your mind. Whatever you do, you'll come out ahead, is what I'm trying to say. There is no right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
It's if in this process you get a better appreciation of yourself, understanding of your own self, you will come out ahead. That's what I'm trying to say. Whatever you decide, whichever way you decide.
Yeah. But my struggle really is, I always contrast the kind of, so I'm still in the work environment. You spend 8 to 10 hours working, right? And the classes of problems that I solve are sort of slightly different than when I compare myself to Sanjay and say, well, he's actually helping people all the time. He's punya all the time. And can I ever match that kind of punya in what I'm doing, right? It's like, okay, you write software programs, or you try to manage people, or you try to, I mean, there's some punya in there, no doubt about that. But how do I increase the level of punya that I do on a daily basis, right?
So why do you want to increase the level of punya?
I don't know. I feel like I'm not doing enough for the world, for other people, for some reason. That I need to do more, right? And maybe it comes from the fact that now there is a clear distinction between desires and a lot of our lives, you lead through your desires, right? You need a house, you need a car, you need this, you need that, you need money. All the influences in the physical world are all about you know that kind of incentive and return. So it takes a while to detach and kind of think about, okay, so what did I, am I still happier with all this stuff or not, right? I'm sure that's typically the lifestyle you end up living, especially in a very materialistic society where you and I are in, right? So I always think about, okay, what should be my catch-up strategy here now?
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand what you're saying. But there might be one thing which might help you, which is Vedanta. What does Vedanta say about all this, right? So Vedanta says you should do good for others, do all the right things, charity, ye, wo, ye. But not because you want to make a difference to the world, because you really can't. The world will take care of itself. The only reason that you or Sanjay or anybody else will do all this or should do all this is for your own peace of mind.
Yeah.
It's for your own antakarna shuddhi. If you can understand that, and say, okay, I understand now that my desire is morphing from wanting a car to wanting Antakarna Shuddhi for my own benefit, not for anybody else's. If you can see that clearly, and then without any guilt, do whatever you need to do for your own sake, for your own Antakarna Shuddhi, daan, charity, this and that, you're fine. Then you don't have to compete with anybody to see whether that other, because both of you are doing it for the same reason. If you think that Sanjay is doing it out of the goodness of his heart, right? May not be nothing wrong in it. I'm sure he has a very good heart. Right? But it's a little, according to Vedant, it's a little deluded, it's a little misinformed. It's very clear. I mean, so many places Upanishads say that by giving to others, the person who gains is you, not the one that you've given to.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So this is also a play of the ego, in a way.
It
Pehle
is.
the ego used to say, I want a better car, so ego was happier. Now you want to say, I want to be a better giver. I want to be bigger contributor to society than others. That's also another form of ego. So this is a play of ego. And the purpose of our world, or of our life in this world, is to get a grip on our ego, to fully understand what this ego is, in which ways is it acting on us. Because only then you can see, oh, this is unreal. This is not really me. But yeah, this is it. This is life. Atul, I'm sorry यार, तेरी कॉफी तो रह गई.
जाऊंगा.
अब जाएगा, सो रहे हैं अभी तेरे क्या?
I can hear them. So I think they may be up.
No, but Dheeraj, isn't it a good exercise to increase your punya balance for your next birth?
Absolutely.
To carry that punya forward?
Sure. I mean, how can it be, if you're doing something which is good for the society and good for you, there's nothing can never be wrong with it. And if that is what you really want to do, to increase your punya balance for your next life, you absolutely should do it. I think. Because otherwise it's the same thing, otherwise you're saying, this is something I wanted to do, but I'm now not going to do it because for whatever reason, you will be stuck. You got to do what your heart tells you to do. You have to either first you have to identify what is it that your heart tells you to do. Then that means by doing so, you will refine. You might initially feel this is what I want to do, but on reflection, you might realize, no, that's not really what I wanted to do. What I want is this. That reflection is very important. But once you've convinced yourself that this is what I want to do, you absolutely must do it. There is no, like, in my mind and my understanding of Vedant, that is actually what is needed. Otherwise, we'll get lost in thoughts and concepts. We'll keep kidding ourselves. The trick is to know what exactly you want. Most of the time, our mind is so confused because we have studied so much, we have read so much, we have listened to other people so much. हमको खुद को नहीं पता चलता है actually what is it that I really want to do. That's the biggest problem. We make cross checks and on ourselves all the time. We double guess ourselves.
But reflections and cross-checking is necessary to learn and to rectify the mistakes and to raise the bar.
Reflection, yes. By cross-check, I meant like by cross-check, I meant um, not to question yourself, but more like we get a to say, for example, in this case, if I was to say संजय ने बहुत दान दिए, actually हमारे आजकल actually IIM में this is exactly what is happening. So what is, what is happening is we have a batch, from IIM Ahmedabad, and IIM Ahmedabad guys, they are like many of them are making huge pots of money, doing great. कोई कुछ कर रहा होगा कुछ. So now there's a trend to contribute back to the institute. So people have started competing with each other. एक ने मेरा दोस्त है, गुड नाइस फेलो, उसने एक स्कॉलरशिप शुरू कर दी है फॉर गर्ल्स, द मोस्ट promising girl in the batch. So he's put a fund aside. Okay, from that there will be a scholarship. We'll take care of her fees for second year. Another person is, she's very, very doing very, very successful. So she's wants to name a building, things like that. Somebody else wants to. So everybody is now feeling, oh, I have to contribute more, right? But I'm just saying that is a good thing. You can say charity is punya, right? So I'm sure people have that in the back of their mind. It's not only to show off to the other person that I'm contributing, but it's also because they want to feel I've got money now. Buying the next car is not that interesting to me. Securing my place in the next janam is actually more beneficial to me. It's a very, this very rarely can happen, because you're a strategic mind, you're a business mind, you're always thinking profit and loss, you're always thinking how to maximize my return on my investment. So spending a few $1 million and in return getting a wonderful swarg life, next life, is a wonderful return on investment as compared to getting another million and putting it in the bank or doing something else. So, but it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. All Vedant is telling you to do is, if that's what you want to do, do it. But recognize that that's your interest. There are only 3 Purusharthas in Vedanta other than moksha: Kama, Artha, and Dharma. पुरुषार्थ है मतलब मेरा पुरुष, मेरा अपना अर्थ, my desire, what I want to do. There is no purushartha in Vedanta which says my desire is for benefit of humanity. That doesn't exist. That desire itself doesn't exist. What it says is that when you have that desire, try to backpedal, try to figure out through reflection what is the underlying desire which is causing that desire. So or you could say this is a deficiency of Vedanta, or you could say this is an insight of Vedanta. So yes, just like there is no harm in getting a car, there's no harm in being rich, there's no harm in doing all good things of life, no harm in, like Atul, traveling around the world in the best of airlines and then comparing which is good, or all these things. There is no harm in trying to secure a spot in the next life. No harm. Only then you will actually get a spot in the next life. And then at some stage you'll say, even that didn't work out. so that's Nirvedan. So that is what exactly the meaning of the phrase, the mantra is. Parikshay Lokan Karam Chittan. All these Lokan is a plural for lok. ये लोक जो है, स्वर्ग लोक, ब्रह्म लोक, पृथ्वी, ये सारे लोक हैं. Pradikshay Lokan, having examined all these different loks. Karam Chittan. Karam Chittan means these are loks which have been born by karmas, by your good karmas. अच्छे कर्म करके जो तुमने, जो लोग प्राप्त करे हैं, परीक्षय, उनकी परीक्षय करके ब्राह्मणा निर्वेदन आयात. Brahmana just means a wise man. Nirvedan ayat. Ayat means he comes to Nirvedan. After having examined all the results of his good actions, a Brahman comes to dispassion. This is simple formula, straightforward formula, written in Mundaka Upanishad. So obviously they cannot be wrong. This is Vedanta. There is no other way for dispassion. You can't think yourself into dispassion. So, yeah, absolutely. Do you agree, Sanjay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mukta, what do you think?
So I was just thinking whatever you were talking and Sanjay's query,
Hmm.
and actually it was taking me back certain places. कि I worked in a government organization जहां पर कोई काम कर रहा है तो भी चल रहा है, नहीं कर रहा तो भी चल रहा है. बहुत से लोग काम नहीं करते तब भी उनका सब कुछ चलता रहता है, ठीक ठाक चलता रहता है. So I was just reflecting on this कि मेरे को जो ये टॉपिक शुरू हुआ था कि क्या उसमें सर्विस फॉर द ह्यूमैनिटी एंड ऑल, तो मैं इसको इस तरह से ही सोच रही थी कि अगर हम जो काम करते हैं, वॉट एवर वी आर डूइंग, if we do it with passion and with dedication and to the best of our abilities, I think that should also be, I mean,
That is service to the
kind of service.
this is very true. You know, this is exactly what Gita says. It says that this world is the sum total of each of our activities. आप अपनी तरफ से संजय, let's say he's a doctor. आप IT engineer हो, software engineer, Rajiv. You may be thinking, I'm just being selfish. I'm working hard for myself. But you're developing a great product which will help humanity.
Yeah.
The world is not interested in the micro analysis of whether you're doing it for selfish reasons or not. The world is interested in saying the product has come. I couldn't care if you make a wonderful device for me, which will replace my Apple thing and you do something wonderful. I don't care whether you've done it for selfish reasons or not. Right? I see a big contribution from you. Only you care.
Yeah.
Because you care for yourself.
Yeah, so this is a transformation within yourself.
Yeah.
This is exactly actually what I've been focused on, is to change my thinking around the work I do, right? And rather than looking at it in terms of you know personal gain, think of it as, what are you giving to others? What can others do with it, right? So yeah, a little bit of a flip in the thought process is certainly helpful
For you, helpful
for
for
me.
your own,
Yeah,
for your peace of
yeah,
mind, for your well-being, for your development. And it's not as if that you suddenly decided and it's helpful. You came to this point because of all the experiences that you had. Imagine this thought wouldn't have occurred to you 20 years ago, when you just started out,
that is correct.
right?
That is correct.
You needed to get the rewards of a good in these 20 years and the ups and downs of this life to reach this point. It is an automatic process aided by your reflections.
And I would say aided by the knowledge as well,
Yeah.
right? Of become, how to try to become dispassionate and how to give up desires, and I mean, I think you slowly you start to apply them every time you face opportunity like that, right?
Mm.
Whether it's buying a car or a house, or helping somebody at work, right? Yeah.
As long as you're, I would say, as long as you're true to yourself,
So,
you're honest.
I mean, I can share that with this team that my personal opinion, is a lot of challenge for me in my in my life has come from safety and security issues, right? Am I safe enough? Am I secure enough? I think those are very, very basic needs. And, you can think about getting a house, getting financial independence, as all safety and security issues, right? So, um, um, changing your mind to think that you are Brahman and hence you are safe and secure, right, is a big change,
Big help.
big change, big help about what am I chasing all this for,
Absolutely. It's like it's coming home. You're not secure, you're wandering everywhere, and then you realize, oh, you're home. That's what that's what understanding your Brahman is like, at least for me.
I mean, it does, when you stay in touch with Vedanta, it does give you a level of, peace of mind, right? The challenge that I face is, and then you go back and you integrate yourself and start, doing all the things you do. And then, you're shaky ground again. So you're going to come back and going to have that conversation with yourself. Oh, no, you're safe and sound. You're okay. It is that kind of experience,
I'll tell you one very interesting, exactly on this, Swami Paramathanand has a very interesting thing. He says, in the beginning, um, we have to go through this process, just exactly what you described. It's like an Indian when he goes to America. उसको कुछ खरीदना होता है ना, तो वो कहेगा अच्छा how much is this, वो कहेंगे $20. So in your mind you will have to do the conversion. For $20, that is like 1,600 rupees. So is this expensive or not? So every time you have to go through this process to reconvert that dollar amount into an amount which actually makes sense to you, which has made sense to you in your previous life. And then you say, हाँ महंगा है कि नहीं है. One day you stop converting. You have reoriented yourself to America. But same thing with us, we hear about Vedanta, it makes sense. When we think through it, it makes sense. So in the beginning, we will encounter multiple opportunities where we'll see whether can we apply Vedanta or not. But every time we have to think back, okay, why is this right? Because okay, this is you kind of do the whole calculation in your mind again. But
Yeah.
but very soon you stop, because the words of this logic is not needed, because you have trust now in Shruti, and the words of the Upanishad are enough. In fact, you count more on the words of the Upanishad than on logic itself. I mean, I can't imagine I'm saying it, having led the kind of life I've led, but it is absolutely true. And in fact, now I even realize that sometimes, in order to make a point to you convincingly, I quote something from the Upanishad. And then later on, I think, like, it means something to me because now that Upanishad means something to me, but maybe it means nothing to you. For you, it's like, why is he quoting the Upanishad, when I'm trying to look at it logically? Correct? But that's exactly what. So it's a beginning stage thing, very well understood and recognized, and happens to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, Nidhyasana, right? The third one, I think that's what's going on, right? I mean, you're trying to permeate this knowledge, in your daily lives. And it takes a lot of effort and to
Yes.
reapply, and you fail and you go back and you reapply.
Well, you know,
I
think about
can
it.
see it in work.
In your
working,
company, you've just done a reorganization. Let's say you did a reorganization. All the departments have been changed. पहले यहाँ पे ऐसे होता था. Now, पहले you were immediately you knew who to go to. Now you got to rethink. Okay, I have this problem. Who should it go to? because your organization has completely changed. The roles have changed. So every time in the beginning, it will be very hard for you to do it. But pretty soon, you get used
It
to
becomes
this
habit. Yeah.
orientation. Same thing here. You know, pretty soon you will get used to this new orientation, and you will stop thinking. This will become part of life. You won't even it, it won't even come up. You know, this is how it is. This is what life is. This is actually how things are. It will no longer seem to be a wonder or something new or something great. You're Brahman, of course you're Brahman. Like a big deal. You know?
But Dheeraj, it is easily said than done and felt. Okay, you are Brahman. You really have to go to the core and feel like Brahman and act like Brahman to get the real feel. Abhi to we are at the first stage, only the Shravan stage. That will come in Nididhyasnam.
No, ऐसा नहीं है. You have to do
Hmm.
Shravana, Manana, Manidasana. You do all the time, and you're
All
doing.
the time, all the time.
So अभी भी जैसे राजीव कह रहा था, it's not Nididhyasana is going on. Every time you do Nididhyasana, the Shravanam, you listen to the same thing again. It seems to suddenly make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Suddenly
sure. Yeah.
you listen to things which you never heard before. तुम कहोगे मैंने सुना था, but I never understood it like that. The same words just suddenly have more and more meaning, and that's a cycle. The more rounds of the cycle you have, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasana, the deeper you go. It's like a corkscrew, you know, you're going deeper and deeper and deeper into it. The more rotations are there. That's what you're doing. And what seems like such a big task, you know, because you're the reason why you're thinking like this, abhi to bahut dur hai, is because in some way in your mind, you're waiting for an experience without realizing it. You're waiting for some experience which will tell you you're Brahman. Soon you'll realize there is no such thing. There's no such
So,
thing.
so Dheeraj, you actually brought up a very, very interesting point, and I did some thinking around that, right? So I wanted to kind of just throw it out there. You know, we talked about Brahman cannot be directly experienced, and you know, it's always an indirect, right? And that's really the major challenge that all of us have.
Yeah.
So I started thinking about, okay, when have we done something like this before, right? And it took me to, you know, a child, when I was a child, right? Your parents always gave you the knowledge that don't do this, okay, right? So it's like you haven't experienced it. So, for example, if you want to go and poke a finger in an electrical outlet, right? One way to really recognize that is to actually poke one in, and you get shocked, right? The other approach is somebody telling you, like your parents, oh, don't do that, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of when I correlate it, you know, that's the knowledge that's being given to you, and then you have to experiment with it to you know whether you know the outcome there is you'll probably never put your finger inside the
but you have no doubt.
outlet, right?
But you're
So
never in
so
doubt.
so knowledge based learning, right? I was just trying to understand, okay, so what is Dheeraj telling us, right? Which is this is knowledge based learning. It's not
Absolutely.
experiential learning,
No,
right?
it's not
And
it.
once you know, so it helped me understand that, you know, we do knowledge based learning as well, human beings,
But
right? You
remember,
just have,
remember what happens when, say, your parents told you, don't put your finger on an electric wire because you'll get a shock, right? Let's
yeah,
say. So first thing, you have trust in your parents. Okay? You know that they are looking out for you,
for you, yeah,
right? As a child also, once you have that
yeah.
shraddha, you listen to them. You'll pay attention to what they're saying. But that's not enough. You look around and see there are people who have put their finger in there and they have suffered, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere you see, nobody of any relevance or any authority has ever said electricity will not give you a shock, right? So slowly, you may not have directly experienced electricity, and then you also understood why electricity gives you a shock, because you
Sure.
now become older, you know, okay, so
Mm.
the corollaries of the knowledge are all around you. You experience the corollaries of that knowledge. You don't experience the shock. Same with Brahman.
Yeah.
The corollaries of this knowledge that you're Brahman are all around you. The corollary is that your basic nature is happiness. You will experience that happiness. That by you think you're a sangha, meaning you're actually a sangha. In other words, life can keep happening. You will come and things will come and go in your experience. You will gain things, you will lose things. Nothing will happen to you. That corollary you have experienced. See, all these things that Vedanta is talking about, the corollaries have rung true.
True. Yeah.
Only then you have come here.
You actually framed it very well, but that's what I was
Trying
thinking
to say.
is,
Yeah.
we have all these indirect, things, that are correlated with Brahman. We just haven't
Absolutely.
recognized it, right?
Yes.
But non-experiential knowledge is reality, I mean,
Absolutely. All basic knowledge is not. Have you ever actually been to the moon? Right?
yeah,
Do you even know that the moon is that far away?
one is there,
Never.
yeah.
We've been told by people who we trust, and nothing in our experience has shown us that the moon should not be far away or there. We trust it. Actually, the knowledge from our eyes. We see something. Have you never had hallucinations? We've had hallucinations.
Mhm.
We've had virtual reality. We can see a lot of things, and they are not true.
Mhm.
It's not a real experience. I mean, if you really think about it.
Yeah. The point that I was trying to debate within myself was, we were like, this thing about experiential learning is easy and the right way to do it. I was just trying to think through, no, there are other ways to learn, right? And they're not as direct as experience, right? And was trying to just kind of,
Yeah. No,
you
you're
know,
right.
uh, yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing here, which is also important here, which is actually is to understand why do they say qualification is important? Because if it was so easy, qualifications wouldn't be important. When they tell you you're Brahman, for you to understand the truth of the corollaries, you need to have a really sharp mind. Sharp, not in the sense of intelligence, but a clean and pure mind.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a real example here. A sangha is a very often made thing. Okay? Brahman, you yourself is a sangha. You're not attached to anything. You will be pure regardless of what is happening around you. When good things happen, you are whole. When bad things happen, you are whole. Now, this to come to actually experience this, you can't experience yourself, but you can experience the asanganess of you. To experience this, to get conviction, you need to experience this. To experience this, you have to have a clear discrimination between what is you and what is your ego. Till you have the discrimination, you won't be able to experience this and make that judgment. Because to most people, if you say, okay, this bad thing has happened, now aren't you? They'll say, no, I'm unhappy, I'm shattered, I'm done. I cannot live anymore. I'm over with this bad thing. And when good things happen, for them, it is very hard to tell them. They make a distinction between your ego and yourself. The thing that's suffering, the thing that's causing you suffering is your ego. It's your ego which has been damaged. If you can make a separation between your ego and yourself, you will see that you are asanga. Now, this is for most people, they'll say this is a superhuman task to make this kind of a discrimination between ego and me. What is it? the discrimination, like I said, between reality, what is real and what is not. Ego is unreal, you are real. But it is possible. It may be a superhuman task, but it is possible. This sort of the ability to make this discrimination is what is called prerequisite for learning. Till if you don't have the capacity to make this discrimination, you will never truly believe that you are a Sangha. Because although all the books may tell you everything, your experience will not tell you. Your experience will continue to tell you every time something bad happens, I'm shattered. Every time something good happens, I'm happy. This is your experience. So you can learn as much Vedanta as you want, it won't do anything. But if you have this discrimination, if you can clearly see your ego, that's why I was saying, whether you do good, whether you do bad, your effort should be to find out what is driving you. Like you have to be able to say, it's my ego that's driving me right now to be more generous. Because I'm looking at people around me who are doing so much good and I'm thinking, why not? Or I want to be more generous because I want to secure a spot in the next thing. It's the ego. So where is the ego and where is so that capacity is what is needed for you to get conviction about. Because once you have that capacity, then conviction is automatic. There's nothing. This is like whatever Vedanta is saying is absolutely true. There's no question. You'll see, I'm a Sangha. That's why, they said, Swami, wo jo Ramana Maharishi the, unko, it took him 5 minutes. He was like, somebody just some Pandit read out the Upanishads to him and he's okay, I'm done. Over. ठीक है, खत्म, ले जाओ. चलो. It's over. That's totally true. But a person who's struggling with his own ego, there's no place for this knowledge. Right? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. I'll give you one other example, which I have been learning from is, before Vedanta, there's no distinction between your ego and the real you. But one of the things that I am able to do now is to take a thought that comes in and just throw it away, right? You just separate it out, just gone, and building more, that kind of discrimination, right? And I can see the ego side, what's coming from the ego side versus, my own debate that, this is my ego, getting me,
exactly.
push. Yeah. So that discrimination is, I can feel now,
Yeah, very good. So, remember, because it took me a while to get there. When you are seeing thoughts come and go, you're not identifying yourself with your thoughts. You are probably identifying yourself with your buddhi. See, in other words, you may think that you're not identified with your thoughts, so that is you're but what you read, it's an onion. It's like layers of the onion. When you don't identify yourself with your body, you're identifying with yourself with your mind. Then you stop trying to identify yourself with the mind, you're identifying yourself with your buddhi, with your knowledge. But you're not even that knowledge. Right? So it's this process that you have to keep slowly going through. But I'm so happy to hear what you just said about even the mind. I'm like don't stop here. But what I'm saying, I'm very happy to hear that you're thinking like this and that you're successful at this. I mean, even just from your questions, I can make out that you're absolutely thinking about it.
No, but Dheeraj, I think, but that's the only way if you have to separate your real self from your mind.
Yes.
Buddhi, chit, memory, ego. If you have to separate yourself from that, this is the only way to do it, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you.
If you can create a gap between these parameters, you are really at peace with yourself and very easy to solve your problems.
The only thing you're not
regarding fear and anxiety and taking wrong decisions.
Yes, so not creating a gap, recognizing the gap.
Recognizing the gap, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
इसमें
नहीं आ गया. One sec, guys.
सॉरी ये
Okay.
ये बाद में ठीक कर लेना.
Okay. कैसे चाहिए थे?
जिसको वो कहते हैं ना कि you have to try to live your life in the Sakshi mode,
Yes. To start to
more
begin.
of an observant, yeah. So and respond rather
Sakshi mode
than
means
react.
Sakshi mode means you're identifying yourself not with the mind, but with the
Not with the mind.
yeah, you're identifying
Yeah.
yourself with the buddhi, which you're saying is Sakshi. Your buddhi, you're trying to keep your buddhi clean. Your buddhi is knowledge. It's making a judgment about this is my thought, this is not my thought, this is ego, this is not my ego. You need somebody or something to make that judgment, that call. That call is the mind, the buddhi, and you're identifying yourself with the buddhi. Right? Because your buddhi is the one which is saying, oh, ye thought आई, फिर ये thought गई. कोई तो है ना कहने वाला. So that is a great point, a wonderful first point. All I was trying to say was that
But aren't we supposed to go beyond buddhi?
yes, that's what I was trying to say. That eventually you will have to go beyond buddhi also to say beyond buddhi का मतलब क्या हुआ? Just recognizing that that is my buddhi. That's all. Beyond तो क्या जाना है? मतलब we can't really go beyond anything, or we are already beyond, right? We just have to recognize it. So
If we cannot go beyond, but when you say in deep sleep, your mind is shut, your buddhi is shut, your physical body is shut, your sensory organs are shut, and then who is experiencing deep sleep?
this is the question. Who is experiencing? Where is the experience? Yeah. So I'm asking you that. So how would you, if you say that I'm the person who is experiencing all these thoughts, then what happens in deep sleep? Where is that you? Buddhi is also shut, right? That is why Brahman is not an object of experience. That's a clear case. Because you know that you were there. It's not that you were not there when you were deep sleeping. You woke up and still there. You were there and you were Brahman. You were there. But you couldn't experience yourself. In order to experience,
But deep
instrument of
sleep is also an experience.
To
You also said that you can't, Brahman has no experience. You cannot experience Brahman, and in Brahman there is no experience.
yes,
Experience is a vritti,
absolutely
and
correct.
there is no vritti in Brahman or
Meaning
Atman or
in other words, in Nirgun Brahman, when you're thinking about deep sleep, there is no vritti. When you are waking up, there are vrittis. So vritti is also
when
in
you are
Brahman
waking
only.
up, there are vrittis. Yeah.
Vritti is in Brahman only, right? And it's the one vritti which is, the sense of experience is also a vritti. This sense that, right? So these are all vrittis which have come in Brahman, and Brahman has
So
the capability.
who experienced deep sleep?
The good question.
Who is experienced
in deep sleep? So that's what I'm saying. Nobody experienced deep. So deep sleep is not a precise example, because even in deep sleep, you have what's called sukshma vrittis. Okay, which we may not is a technical thing, but it's close enough. So that sukshma vritti is there in Brahman, but in reality, there is nobody to experience anything in deep sleep. That is why there is no experience in deep sleep. There is nobody to experience anything, but you are there. So what does that mean? If I say there is nobody to experience anything in deep sleep, statement one. Statement two, you are there in deep sleep. Then what does it mean? It means you are not the one who is there to experience. Because you are there, but the person to experience was not there. So you and the person to experience are not the same. Do you understand? If there are two things, A and B, I say in this state, A is not there, but B is there. Then you know that A and B are not the same. In your waking state, both A and B are there. In your dream sleep state, A and B are both there. So you have no way of knowing whether A and B are two different things or they are the same, whether they are correlated or not. But you have deep sleep. In deep sleep, A is there, B is not there. So that's a clear proof that A and B are not the same. You are there, but there is no experiencer in deep sleep. That means Brahman is not the experiencer. If Brahman was the experiencer, you would always be experiencing. There would never be a situation when you would never experience. Then people say, okay, the experiencer was there, but the object of experience was not there. That's why you didn't experience. But the object of experience is also Brahman. It's not like there is some other reality which is the object of experience. So the experiencer is also Brahman, the object of experience is also Brahman. Whether they are there or not, there's Brahman. Whether they're not there, there's still Brahman. That's the thing that you have to. So if you keep thinking and you get stuck on this, that I can see my thoughts pass. My ego, I understand my thoughts. In your mind, you'll still think, oh, Brahmanism is experiencing, because you are experiencing those thoughts. So why you have to move beyond that is because just to understand that actually there is no Brahman doesn't experience. So the only example I can give you is the light example, which I gave you last time. Right? Brahman is not the object which is lit. Think about Brahman as the light itself, in whose presence the objects are lit. But the good news is that after all is said and done, nobody ever hesitates to go to sleep. In fact, if anything, we want to get a good night's sleep. We want to sleep. Although there is no experience in sleep, we still love sleep. So what this tells you really to a sharp mind is, we think that we get experience from happiness, but in reality, we don't. In reality, we get happiness from just being us. Experience is irrelevant to happiness. Otherwise, you'd never want to go to deep sleep. Like, nobody even tells you that after deep sleep, you're going to get up. You don't even think about, am I going to get up or not? Let's say you went into deep sleep and you never woke up. Are you going to be unhappy? No. Right now, you'd say, oh, I will be unhappy, because there is all kinds of fears and ego and anxieties and all kinds of things. So for you to fully accept that Brahman is not an experience, you have to fully accept that you can be happy without experience. You have to understand that your happiness has nothing to do with experience, really. Because if you think that you'll be happy with experience and you can't emotionally grab that you can be happy without experience, you will never accept that Brahman, there will always be a resistance. I think अतुल तू तो सो ही जाएगा यार. हो गया तो बिल्कुल ही.
नहीं जाग रहा हूँ.
I think we should call it a day or night, as the
तुमने
case may be.
कॉफी नहीं पीने दी ना.
Atul ko, yes, exactly. So Starbucks, and now he
So
was.
can I just ask, sorry, can I ask something?
Yeah.
Which is that, this entire time, Rajiv, when you said, and it was a very nicely brought up point, that all knowledge doesn't have to be experience based. And we say Vedant is finally the removal of ignorance. That is what gives you knowledge. But then we are saying that we've always said about Vedant, but are we saying that all the preparation for Vedant has to be experience based? It's just the final realization is not experience based, but everything that leads up to it has to be experience based.
What do you mean has to be experience based?
I mean, for instance, when you were saying initially, to get live your life,
to answer
live your
question,
life,
yes,
right?
it has to be. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, everything, all the preparation for Vedant is also, life is the preparation for Vedant. That's what I'm going to tell you. It's not that there is some special preparation for Vedant.
No, I'm saying, I was just talking in terms
So
of
life is
experience
experience-based.
versus non-experience.
Yeah,
So
sure.
everything, we need experience to be ready for the realization, which is finally not experience based.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, you already have experience. You have experience, And what we are trying to, what Vedanta is trying to tell you is that this experience is mithya. We are looking at our experience in one way. We are thinking that objects are reality, there's nothing else. Vedanta is just saying the experience is not going to go away. It's not as if one day suddenly you will be devoid of experience. Nothing is going to go away.
I understand that. I was just
It's saying
asking
that
about the
it's saying
necessity
that
of
Vedanta is
experience.
just telling you that the experience is mithya, and there is a satyam which is satyam. There's a Brahman which is satyam, which is you, and the experience is mithya. That's all. Because it's not as if Maya exists, has always existed. It's not as if with knowledge Maya will cease to exist. It's not as if with knowledge experience will cease to exist. It's just that with knowledge you will understand the reality of experience. That's all. With knowledge you will understand that the sense of reality that you placed on experience is not correct, is not appropriate.
But I was just saying that in order to come to that knowledge, you really, when you were saying in order that don't kid yourself, pursue what you want and live your life fully. So you need all sorts of anyway, maybe I have to sort it through in my head. I was just thinking about the need for experience versus not. And it seems like there's a very definitive need for experience, because even that knowledge finally has to be experience-based knowledge. When we talk about deep sleep, and so all of this is experience-based knowledge. But we say finally it is not knowledge. Finally, it's knowledge and it's not experience, right? Finally, it's the removal. Finally, it's.
It is true. Yeah, keep going. I mean, you were leading to a place. I think you were saying. Okay.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that it is, what we are saying is that we thought that me needs that experience for my happiness. What we are realizing is that I am a sangha. I don't need that experience for my happiness. That experience can come and go, things happen. I may be happy, unhappy in a moment in time, but it's not existential for my existence. Whereas before knowledge, we think that experience is my existence, that there's no existence other than the experience. All we are now saying is we are looking at it a little differently, and now we are able to realize that I exist. My existence is untouched by experience. That's all. We're not saying that a time will come when all this experience will go away, right? Just
No. Yeah.
We're not saying that the reality is that there is no experience and this experience is unreal. We are not saying that either. We are saying that there is a satyam and there is a mithya. Mithya comes from Maya. Maya is anadi. It has been there forever. It's not going to go away. Nothing is going to go away. The world comes and goes, nothing. But I just know that my reality is Satyam. That this experience is not going to existentially matter to me. That's all. Nothing. This is all there is to knowledge. Getting conviction in this knowledge, understanding this deeply, and not having any doubts about it, and having the experience which corroborates this, the corollaries that Rajiv was talking about earlier. Seeing life that way is knowledge, is gyan. That's all. There's nothing more than this. Like I said, at the end of the day, Vedanta is a pramana for Brahman. Vedanta takes your attention to Brahman. It takes your attention to yourself. It says, you're ignoring, my guys, you're living your life, but you're ignoring something. And you're ignoring the fact that there is a you which is looking at this life, which is seeing this life. And then it's telling you, this is the nature of that you. And I have to tell you this because you can't find that out for yourself. You're trapped. So I'm telling you this. Now you figure this out. See whether this makes sense to you. That's all. No more.
Okay.
I think our interpretation to an experience changes
Yes,
and our
exactly.
response to the experience changes.
Changes. Absolutely correct. Based on
As we
knowledge.
go ahead, yeah.
Not based on discipline, based on knowledge. In the beginning,
Based on
it is
knowledge.
based on discipline. You try very hard to not be affected based on willpower. That's how you start. But nothing based on discipline and willpower lasts. There will be a point at which the discipline breaks. But you get to a point where you say this based on knowledge. Because this is what actually is the reality. Truth. You can't beat the truth. So I think we really should call it a day, yaar.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
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 So
Okay.
next
Bye,
time.
everyone.
All right. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Yeah.